Hello, everyone, once again for our Body Mastery with Stan. And you remember last week we were talking about walking, and we talked about things like walking backwards and things of that nature and how it affects our knees. And that was an extension of a previous one also. And this week, or should I say this month, we're going to be talking about footwear. Yay! So Stan, I did my homework. Well, I did part of my homework. I have to admit I was not a good student. I was supposed to take some pictures also, and well, it didn't get taken. So I'm not even gonna make a pretend, like how kids do. Well, you see, what had happened was I'm just gonna fess up and say I didn't do my homework. But anyway, I did do part of it, which was to get my shoes. And you can see these are my soles of my shoes. And I could see that my heels are kind of worn more on the outside. And we were just talking about this before we started today. And we said that my left heel seems a little bit more worn than my right heel. So we were going to talk a little bit about that.
Exactly. So, the idea behind shoes is it's to protect our feet from the external environment. But the problem is that we wear shoes nonstop from the time that we get dressed in the morning until we jump in the shower at the end of the day or jump in bed at the end of the day for some. And where our feet are continually constricted. Now, imagine that the most important aspect of a home is the foundation. So if you have a great foundation, anything built on top of it can be either repaired, removed, and replaced, and renewed. But if you think you could start with the roof and then build up underneath that, you are going to have a lot of work ahead of you. And this is what happens in the body. We focus on our hair, on our clothes, on the way that our clothing is fitting. And then we finally throw on something that will accent what our clothing is. So we want our shoes to match our clothes, right? And what happens is we fail to look at the foundation. Our feet are taking 5 times the amount of weight every step that we take. Wow. Now, when you think about how much you weigh, so 5 times that amount. So let's say I weigh 150 pounds. So there's 5 times that amount of weight, 750 pounds, 800 pounds. You do the math per step every time I'm moving. Now, all of that going on to a small number of a confined area bones. So there are 26 bones and 33 joints in our foot. That's a lot.
That is.
And when we're trying to fit everything inside of a shoe that complements what we're wearing rather than what it's supporting, we get the things mixed up. And we kind of get the cart in front of the horse, and it doesn't work very well. So we've got to get the horse in front of the cart so that we can move the body.
Yeah. So what does it mean when our heels are more worn? It's almost like tires on a car. If you have the weight not balanced, then you're going to wear out certain tires more so than others, and also wear out the shocks in the car. And I'm finding that out right now because I'm having to pay hundreds and horrible amount of money to replace the shocks. And I guess it's because we haven't been balancing the weight in the car properly. And so the shocks and everything's just screwed up. So tell us what that means for us with our feet and our bodies.
Okay, well, sometimes we pay more attention to our vehicle than we do to the vehicle that's operating our greatest capacity on the planet Earth. And that is our body and our feet. And so when we have wear on one side or the other, it means that there's a musculoskeletal imbalance. And it's usually a muscular imbalance. And so what's happening is one foot is doing more of the work. There's a compensation on one side and a dysfunction on the other, shortening and a lengthening of the muscles. This is what we talk about in these body hacks with Stan, and why it is so valuable to work both sides of the body. And when we're working both sides of the body, we're getting into a musculoskeletal balance. And that means we work the right side and the left side bilaterally. Well, what happens when we have wear on the bottom of our shoes and it's showing more on one side or the other? That's kind of the telltale sign. You know, how many of us really look at the bottom of our shoes until it's brought to your attention? And then you go, well, how come I've got more wear on this side? And it's because we don't even recognize what our feet are doing. And they're compensating for what's happening up above them. When you've got more wear on one side, and you can have that wear on the outside of the heel on one, and then on the opposite foot, you may notice a little more wear on where, let's say, just below the small toe, the outside of the foot on the opposite. So go ahead and take a look at your shoes and tell me if you notice that there's a little more wear on the opposite foot higher up, not on the heel, but towards where the ball of the foot area is. Do you notice a little more wear in that area on the opposite?
I'm not noticing it, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
Because when I'm looking at it, it just seems that I don't know. It's the most noticeable part that I can see is just the heel. The outer part of both heels is just really worn. But I don't really notice anything other than that.
Okay. Move your shoe over just a little bit. Let me see here. Okay. So when I look at the center of your shoe on the left foot, you see there is more wear. There's actually more wear on the outside. Go down. Right there. Okay. So you see how much more wear is on the outside of that shoe than there is on your other foot. So all of your wear is on the outside. So your weighting, your body's weighting is actually on the outside of your left foot. And it's carrying more weight there. So you're doing more wearing out of that shoe on the outside than you are on the right foot. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so there's an imbalance, and your shoes are the telltale sign. They'll tell you. And then you may notice at the end of the day that your feet are tired or your body's aching. Well, what happens is the kinetic chain from the ankles all the way up is that our body is now making the adjustment. So when you see the kids in these fashionable shoes, they're unfashionable for the structure. And if they're in a heel and they're constantly in heels, what that's doing is it's shortening the Achilles tendon. It's shortening the calf muscle. It puts a constraint on the lower lumbar, so it exaggerates the lumbar extension. It's terrible on the hips. And your body is constantly compensating. So when you're barefoot, now your body gets to do a vertical load where it's on flat surface and the weight is coming down. Now, if you're in a high heel, now all the weight is pushed to the ball of your feet. And then if you're in heels, now you're pushing all that weight into the front of your shoe. Now, when you do that, you constrict all those muscles and those tendons and the bones, and now you're squeezing them together. Now, imagine doing that all day long. Let's just say you'd wrap tape around your fingers all day long, really tight, and now tight. That's what you're asking your foot to do. And you say, well, I couldn't type with my fingers taped together. Well, that's exactly what you're asking your foot to do. Operate your body optimal way with it being constricted, and all shoes are not designed the same. And one of the best things that you can do is either, number one, go barefoot, go back to the natural design of the human body, or get some shoes like what you showed me at the beginning of the show. Yes, these are beautiful. This is a beautiful design of shoes. See, you see how wide the foot is? Now compare that with your other shoe. Just put them up side by side, and you can see how the other shoe constricts the foot. It doesn't allow the foot to spread out, doesn't allow the toes to engage. It changes the way that our gait is. And I don't mean the gait, the entrance to your property. I mean the gait of your walking. So you see the difference, how that dress shoe, it kind of curves and it presses the big toe and the little toe into a tight, rounded area that's not really rounded. Now you look at the other shoe, you look at the other shoe, now your foot is spread out, your toes actually have movement, they can actually engage. And here's my suggestion. If you are in the process of wanting to have better foot health, and you want to go to a shoe like this, like a Vibram or 5-finger shoe, or this particular shoe here, do it gradually, because it's just like anything else. Your body has to get acclimated to a new environment. It's like a new house. If you move from one house to a new house and you put the silverware in one drawer on one side of the room in your new home, but in your old home, they were always on the right side, because when you walked in the kitchen on the right side, that's where the drawer was. But the new kitchen, it's kind of laid out differently. And so now silverware is on the left side. You are going to continue to go by habit to the right side. And you're going to open the drawer, it's going to have the towels in there, and go, where's the silverware? Well, your feet are going to do the same thing, and they're going to go, hey, wait a minute, you're giving us freedom. We can't handle all of this freedom all at once. So my suggestion is, get a good quality pair of these 5-finger shoes and break them in, and allow your feet to spread out. Allow your muscles in your feet to operate in such a way that you are balancing. See, when you're in shoes, and I've got a pair here, and I'm not doing an advertisement for Under Armour, but this little bridge, this half-inch raise actually puts pressure, and it forces my foot to come up. Now, if I'm wearing high compression shoes like this all the time, I'm training my body, in a fashion. And so what happens then is, if I'm not careful, I can actually cause to where my knees will now create a bend, and there will be that's a shock absorber, because it's wanting to compensate. So then what happens is that goes up to my knee, which goes up to my hip, which creates an exaggeration on my lumbar, and it goes all the way up to the neck and the head. And it's like sitting in a chair all day long. If you're sitting in a chair all day long, you're doing the same thing to your butt that you are to your feet.
So now, what would cause the wearing out of the outer side of the shoe as opposed to having it levelly be?
An imbalance. And when you constantly wear those comfortable shoes over and over, and you overwear them, and I've had people tell me, but Stan, they're so comfortable, they're wore out, and they're comfortable. Well, they're comfortable because your body got used to an abuse. And when you try to straighten it out, when you try to correct it, it says, hey, I don't like this. Go put the old comfortable shoes on that are dysfunctional, because you've trained me to be dysfunctional, And now this is why when I buy a new pair of shoes, my foot kind of drags, it skips. What it's telling me is, hey, you're out of balance. Let's get in balance. Let's train the muscles like they were designed instead of using them the way that you designed them to be dysfunctional. Just because it's dysfunctional doesn't make it going to be uncomfortable in the beginning. But you may notice that your back is a little achier or a little more tired, or your shoulders are a little more rounded, or you notice that one knee is more tired than the other one. Well, it's that wearing out of the shoe, and it is fighting the new norm. So when we go to a flat shoe where there's really no padding, no heavy padding on the inside, it's saying, hey, we're going to teach you to operate the way you were designed. Now, take a spoon, for example. If you take a spoon and you turn it backwards, it's still a spoon. Yes, but it's not very effective. So it's the same way with your shoe when they get worn out. Yeah, it's still a shoe, but it's not very effective.
So the moral of the story, my dear ladies and gents, well, twofold, is to get one of these 5-fingered shoes, as Stan calls it, or I looked it up on Walmart, got it. It's like a barefoot shoe, whatever. And it's very flexible. And you'll see that it doesn't have any extra padding in the heel or anything of that nature. And allows your feet to spread out and almost like grip the ground with your 5 toes kind of thing. And then the other thing is to contact Stan so that you can find out why you may have that wear on a particular foot or on a particular area, so that you can start to create balance by strengthening the counter muscles and the counter leg or whatever it is. You can see that I totally don't know what the heck I'm talking about. So that's why you need to call Stan. So that you can get balanced.
Yeah. Take that shoe and really just roll it up. That's what it should allow your foot to do. Flex. And you see, you can't do that in a shoe like this. Like this, I can do this right here. Okay. So that's pretty good. But you get some shoes and you cannot do that. Like I can roll these shoes with minimal effort. Okay. But now some shoes, they're so rigid, you can't even do that.
All your dress shoes, pretty much. Yeah.
So, take the most beautiful part of your human existence, and that is your musculoskeletal function, and put it into something that's going to treat it right. Now, I know you can't wear those to a wedding, but consider those as an option or later on, and take and go outside in those and get used to it. And the more you get used to it, the more you may enjoy it.
And, it's like everything else that I tell people, there's the 80-20 rule, so you strive to do, quote unquote, the more nurturing, healthy thing 80% of the time. And you allow for the insanity of fashion the other 10 or 20% of the time. We all live in the real world where we have, office meetings and those types of things. So, we're not absolutists. We're just encouraging you to give a little bit of freedom to the foundation so that you can level up, and strengthen everything from the ground up. Well, Stan, thank you once again for a very, very informative session today and a phenomenal body hack that applies to everyone from the young to the old. Until next time, my dear ladies and gents, peace and blessings.